These are structures on the moon's surface that I filmed directly with a camera and then enlarged the image on the LCD screen using a touch phone camera with autofocus. So these are reaching 4,000 to 6,000 zoom. There's 50 optic Olympus SP100 a double E lens in the front, which reaches 200 zoom. So it's obviously for a digital applied to it. And these images are enlarged on the back screen, which is 10 times more. So we're getting 2000 zoom. And then I use a HTC autofocus camera in a dark room to just take the pictures, which are usually 2 to 3 times magnification. So we're hitting 4,000 to 6,000 zoom. I haven't seen such zoom anywhere else in the world. And I was just intrigued. So this started on early October 2015 when I bought the camera. I actually thought I'd try it at night time. Now these are the terminator lines where the shadow meets the bright surface of the moon that change every night. Now I can only get this during the night time. I can't get it during the daytime. And the bright surface, you can't see anything. It's just too bright. And in the dark surface, you can't see anything at all either. So the perfect time, which is a very, very dark night with no clouds, and usually high up. And I had to wait for those times a few times using my alarm clock early in the morning as well to follow these structures. They were just too fascinating. And you'll see these fantastic shapes appearing in these perfectly round holes, and these objects usually are sitting in these round holes. The holes are obviously, they should be just craters, but the objects that appear there are just, some are spectacular. And I just kept taking pictures and processing these in a dark room. That object looked very interesting. So it was like a tall tower and had this curvy shape on it. That's it there. And obviously these are just like mountains or growths of things, but they're caught in color. That's why these shots are intriguing. I've used a filter on a few of those to just bring up the structure. Now that structure is looking very interesting. It's very tower-like. So these are probably a few kilometers high. And that's all I could get on that one, so I couldn't get any closer. Here it is again. So I just waited probably till the next night, till a shadow moved over it, and you see some lovely shapes, circular shapes in these shapes, and there's a shadow coming down. So it's like a tall rectangular object. I just go through them step by step until I find something that I can stop on and look. That last one was taken from one other telescope image. So I don't trust any telescope image. I always try to take images that I process on my own, because then it's my camera, it's the way I process it, and they're real images. They aren't all the other images of people that film by telescope. There's a flat pancake surface. It looks too flat to have any strange objects on it, but the ones that I film are just not the same as what other people film with telescopes. I'm getting down close and perfect color. Obviously these are just like mountains or hills there on the surface, and I haven't seen any of these that close. So obviously we're talking 4,000 to 6,000 zoom. Some have produced some very spectacular objects there which can't be explained, and obviously when we reach those I'll stop on those straight away. That's interesting because it just shows an object that appears to come up and go sideways. And these are always on the terminator line. I can't get any clearer images using it on the bright areas. This is a very peculiar object that here's that strange shape again. Now this object I started to follow because it looked very dark and it was near that perfect. These are like perfect holes rather than craters. They're deep and they're black because the shadows next to these other ones are not that deep. And all of a sudden I saw this object. Now when I used a scale on this, it was 100 kilometers high and 100 kilometers wide. It just seemed too out of ordinary. And I use that scale by using a film of the moon, placing it on here, and then finding out the moon is about 3,500 kilometers wide and using appropriate scale. I checked this scale many, many times. So I just couldn't explain why that object there would be that height. So I just kept waiting for that object as the light went over the next few days. And there's that strange object there as well. It was just great to sort of wake up next day and just wait for that night time and zoom in again. I had spectacular colors popping up on that object. Here it is again. I'm starting to get close up to it, and it looks to be huge. It's just sitting there on that shadow line. It seems to be absorbing the sunlight. There's one other strange object. So I tried the best autofocus. It was in a dark room. There's that object that was next to it. Just, they're beautiful shapes. It just seems to be like a major round object there, then these bits coming off it. Again, it could be a natural formation. The last thing I want to do is jump to conclusions what these things are. They're just spectacular. I'll try to go a bit quicker. So here it is where it starts to get some colour on it. Obviously I had to wait 1 or 2 days for the light to reach it so I can see the full colour of it. And every shot is the terminator. Here we start to see that object. It just looks, you'll see this start to colour up later. And it's huge. It is 100 kilometers high and 100 kilometers wide. This is fantastic. Look at that. So that object there, I caught it when it had these beautiful structures coming off it. That was the clearest shot I could get. I'm not sure what it is, obviously. These are great structures. So this is what I'm talking about. That area there, which I capture, and then I zoom in on those objects, which are on the terminator line. And yet, you won't see those objects there when it's bright white. They seem to disappear. So these strange shapes I zoom in on those objects that are there, and they're spectacular. There's that large object that I was telling you about. That just, you won't see it anywhere else. And the holes just look perfectly round and deep. Look at that. There's that object again. It's curvy, it's very high. And it seems to be purple, light blue, yellow, and brown. There it is there, that's perfect. That's where the colours seem to come up on the ridge. So I just try to go a bit faster, but the pictures were so good I had to process quite a few of this object here. And that's the last time I actually ever saw it, when I went through the terminator lines again. It just didn't seem to be there anymore. I could never capture that object again. So I couldn't explain what was happening. There's like a tower that appears. There it is again. This is interesting. So obviously these are my images. Look at that. That is spectacular. It just looks so strange. So that's right there on the moon. It's a close-up of that really weird shape. Start to go. These are not that clear, so I'll go through them a bit quicker, but it just shows you all the strange shapes that are up there. There's that thing again. Don't know what it is. These are interesting shapes there. They seem to be growing horizontally. There it is there. That's very interesting. So I'm literally going through every photo to show how sometimes it's just sea objects there which, you know, you got all these strange rounded shapes and tubes and things, and all of a sudden you get some spectacular shots. Now this is where we're coming up towards the top and you see these shapes there. There's an object that just seems to come right up. I couldn't get any closer image of it. This looked interesting as well, that shape. Now these aren't as clear as I want them to be. The ones that I'm coming up to later are a lot clearer. And you see some spectacular things just that shouldn't be there. I'm still thinking about them, what they are and how could they possibly end up on the moon. Now, again, I wouldn't believe these pictures unless I took them myself with my own camera and processed these in a very dark room after I took them. And we're hitting 4,000 to 6,000 zoom. That's unusual as well. I've got certain theories about what these things could be. So they're either very highly camouflaged objects by, and this thing here just seemed to be too far away from the terminator line, and it just one side lit up, then it didn't light up, then it lit up again. I'll actually talk about the things I think when we reach those pictures. And here we're starting to get a taste of the strange things that are coming up here. And again, the holes seem to be either very deep or just like, so this is probably 5 or 10 kilometers wide, and yet they're perfectly closed. And some other ones are just endlessly deep, as though they've opened up like portals or escape hatches. It's just, they're perfectly round and they're endlessly deep, and there's things that are literally coming out of them, tubular objects, which I've asked a colleague in Mexico to use his telescope to actually also take similar pictures. But I won't use his pictures here because obviously I only trust my own, the ones that I've processed. But his came up the same, and he photographed perfectly tubular structures sitting on, perfect spheres sitting on platforms, and tubular-like things coming out of these perfectly round holes, like huge objects just crawling out of them. That sounds weird, obviously, but that was my impression of what he was actually. This was unusual. And there's a rod that comes out of there. That's unusual, that shape. So he came up with the same peculiar type of images. This is where I'm starting to get this sort of shape coming in. It looks like a honeycomb with entrances, and they're all like different colors. You see quite a few of those coming up. That one, I just can't explain that one. Here it is. So it's right on top. That's the original picture, which I then zoom in on that area. So that shows which area I've zoomed in on. I've then taken a H2C autofocus camera screen and just focus in at the right time. Now, that looks like an object, like some sort of, I don't know what it is, but you'll see the various colors of it. They're like entrances there. And some are perfectly clear. All different colors come up on this object. That's unusual. It seems like that's that end of it, the end part of it. It's just so bizarre. There just seem to be huge objects sitting there on the surface. The best images that I've caught, look at that. The best images I've caught are actually during a full moon on the edge of it. And these come up full color. There's a shadow under it. So it looks that object there is turning its side. And there's that color bit there. It's just, I don't want to make any comments of what I think it is. It's just, they're too, look, that is so bizarre. Look at that. No idea what that could be. It seems that end piece just turned its head around there. And there's one opening right there, or turned around right there. There's quite a few of these very strange ones coming up, which I can't explain what they are, why they're sitting there on the surface. Some are very bright blue, and a few times I've caught a very bright blue ring around there, which I think could be the atmosphere. It's a very, very small atmosphere there. That's a very unusual object as well. It just sits there. It's tubular. That's right, the edge as well. Huge pink objects. And I've actually filmed these before using the Fuji camera as well. Huge pink blobs and things like that just turn up. That's a very nice picture. Perfectly white. Look at that. It just looks like it's a white type of tube. I only stop at the ones I think are important. You can see all the various strange things there of all sorts of colours that appear. There's that object again. It just seems to be sitting there. It's got all these ridges to it and openings. Spectacular colours usually come up in this object. Seems to be openings to it and all sorts of colours. It's like a hill structure or formation. Here's that strange object again. Look at it. I just don't know what to make out of it. Look at that shape. That's on the moon. That was right on the edge. And here's where we got that particular cocoon type of shapes coming up, and like entrances there. I've got quite a few that come up like that. So that's the area of the moon, and we'll just zoom in. Look at that. It's a clear shot. Now I could do this in a few parts because there's so many pictures. So I'll probably try to keep it to 25 minutes each, and obviously you then got part 1, part 2, and part 3 and all that sort of stuff. Here is again that shape. Some could be accidental, but there's just too many here which are just so weird that they can't be accidental shadows or anything like that.